and it's here in Cleveland. We had this horrible storm going on, and it was just amazing. I pulled out of the parking lot at the center where my dad is, the skilled nursing facility, and pulled right into a traffic jam. And I knew either way I went, I was going to run into a lot of traffic. The rain was coming down. There was accidents and a power line down. And I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy, but it's April. So, I'm happy to see the April showers here and happy to see all of you here. And it was just such a journey home. And so I'm so glad that you guys are here waiting on me and that we can talk today and talk about A Course in Miracles and all the other juicy stuff that I have to talk about. Um, an absolutely spectacular day. I so appreciate all of you guys. I saw a post from Dances and Lynn, and I'm not sure who else, but for some reason in this new facility where my father is, we don't have internet service, which is just absolutely horrendous to me. And so I'm trying to figure that out as I go along, try to figure out. So I was able to get on my phone, but I'm not my phone is not that smart. So I need to figure out how I'm going to manage that going forward. So right now, you're listening to Sandra Bishop. I'm here from Cleveland, Ohio. I suppose I am streaming over ustream.tv/Sandra Said It. I should be also streaming over my website, sandrasaidit.com, and perhaps even on my Facebook page. On my Facebook, I've got a Sandra Thrives page there on Facebook, and so hopefully I am streaming on there as well. So yeah, lake effect weather is crazy in Cleveland. So yeah, but all is well. I so love this. It's like nature, the earth knows exactly what it's doing. And so I don't, I never question it. It just is what it is. I'm just hoping that throughout this time we are able to maintain and go on about our business like normal. So I'm just so thankful to be experiencing all of the seasons and all this stuff. So let me start this out like I normally do, because I've got so much that I want to talk to you guys about. Normally I go through and I tell you the introduction to A Course in Miracles, which is right in the front of your book, nestled behind the table of contents and in front of the first chapter of the text. And it goes like this. It says, "This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The aim of the course is not to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does, however, aim at removing the blocks to your awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposites. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." Now, I know you hear my phone ringing, and for some reason, I don't have my phone next to me, so I can't even click off the ringer or see who's calling. So I'm trusting that it's not Dove. Um, but I probably do need to look at the screen because my dad is still in the wherever he is. He's in the skilled nursing facility, but I'll get it in a second. So I just came in, I set up, and I wanted to jump off into this because I'm so excited. Of course, as always, as always, it's like I've got all this juicy stuff that I keep thinking I need to tell you about because life is juicy. And so today, yesterday, I talked a little bit about, I don't know, some of everything. I never know what I talk about. And I'll tell you the honest to God truth. When I run in here, usually to do my show, I have no clue what's going to come out of my mouth. I don't have a set agenda. I just come in here and I take off running. And it seems as though I keep running until I finally get to that hour mark. And it's like, wow. that was cool. And then I run out of stuff to say. And then it's like, okay, I just depleted myself over the hour. And then I'm all great, all good. And so starting next week, I will be on, let me tell you guys this now. I will be on Monday and Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. As far as I know, from here on out, Monday and Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. On Tuesdays, I'll be teaching an actual class. And so unless I can get that class where it's streaming live, I will not be here on Tuesdays. I will be here on Monday and Wednesday, and Tuesdays I'll be teaching a class. So that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. All right. So now let me tell you this. Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you. Let me tell you this. Okay, because um, it's yesterday. Remember yesterday, if you were here in the room yesterday, I talked about my love for Joseph Campbell. And I do believe Free, that was here yesterday, was telling me about how much she loved Joseph Campbell too. I don't know who all it was, but my just love, this overwhelming love I have for Joseph Campbell, as if we were just the same things that fascinated him also fascinate me. And so I was talking about, I've been reading one of his books that was kind of put together from a series of lectures that he did. Now, if you guys are at all interested in Joseph Campbell, you'll remember him from The Power of Myth. If you've never watched The Power of Myth with Bill Moyer and Joseph Campbell, you really owe it to yourself to get that series. And you usually now, it's in all of the libraries where you can just order it at a library and you can watch from on the videotape. And then they made a book out of the dialogue as well, and it's talking about, he talks about some of everything, but the power of the myths that inform not just our life where we are now, but that inform our history, and it shapes how we see the world. And so, so the power of myth is just absolutely marvelous. He talks about how we see things today, and because we don't know their history, we just take it for granted that it's true. Even when we talk about the Bible, he talks about the Bible in the sense that we don't recognize that a lot of the symbolism that's used in the Bible has roots in it, traditional roots that we don't understand, but it doesn't necessarily negate them. It means that we are talking, he talks about the fact that everything was written down in metaphor and metaphoric language. And since it was written down in metaphoric language, we have this idea that it should be, precise, taken precisely as it means, rather than seeing that in context, they're taking something that's old and trying to fit it into a new mentality. And so yesterday I talked a little bit about Joseph Campbell. And then today, while I was reading out of my book, sitting next to my dad, I started reading, and it was just some juicy stuff that came up for me. And so I want to share that today, as well as some other ideas and thoughts that I've had since yesterday when I talked to you guys. Yesterday, I don't even know what the story was that I shared, but I will share. I've got so much stuff that I want to share. So let's start off with Joseph Campbell, and I want to read a couple of things to you, and then I want to talk about that. And of course, since Dove is in the room, I'm sure he will probably relate it to or tell you the quotes that are referenced, that should be referenced with this from the Course in Miracles, just because he's so wonderful like that. And I'm sure you guys already know them too. But nevertheless, we're here. And so I'm going to do this. So today, as I was reading, here is what I came across. It says, and I'm big on this, so let me read it and then I'll talk about it, because this is just me all the way. It says, one way to deprive yourself of an experience is indeed to expect it. Another is to have a name for it before you have the experience. Carl Jung said that one of the functions of religion is to protect us against the religious experience. Now, did you hear that? Woo! I love it. I love it. Love it. I love it. Okay, so let me keep going until I and then come back to it. That is because in formal religion, it is all concretized and formulated. I love that word concretized, concrete, to concretize. But by its nature, such an experience is one that only you can have. As soon as you've classified it with anyone else's, it loses its character. A preconceived set of concepts catches the experience, cutting it short so it does not come directly to us. Ornate and detailed religions protect us against an exploding mystical experience that would be far too much for us. Oh, don't you? You know, and so as I was reading that, don't you just love that? Um, so, yeah, Rachel, I hope, I don't know, I don't know what's coming out of my mouth. So it says one of the ways to deprive ourselves of a true mystical experience is to expect it. And then the other thing is, and here's kind of what I want to talk about, because a lot of times what we try to do is we all want to have this experience. We want to, what was that, Bartholomew, in that book? It says that the reason why we are not enlightened is because we think we're not. And so we think we're not because we're trying to pattern ourselves off of somebody else. And so we go around and we think that because this person, because Lynn has had this experience, or because Dove, or because Sandra, or somebody else has had a particular experience, we want ours to match theirs, as if there is some kind of experience, some kind of collective awakening that we all have, and that it will all be the same. So with this idea that our awakening, our experience of God is all going to be the same, then we sit there and we think that somehow the one that we're having, the one that we're in the midst of, is not real because it's not like somebody else's. And so it becomes this thing of we're constantly running around chasing after something that we perceive ourselves as not having, but what we might actually have if we would just let go of trying to compare our experience of God, spirituality, and religion to everybody else's. So it becomes this thing of everybody. I mean, I don't care what series, what religion, what school of thought you're in. If you're in one faith, apostolic faith, everybody wants to speak in tongues. Everybody thinks that somehow God is going to like them or favor them by speaking in tongues, to the point of where they'll fake it. I grew up in a Baptist church and they did this thing, they would, I love. Did I tell you I love religion? So, so you've got all these people in the Baptist church, and there is this kind of like rapture that just kind of takes over, and they start shouting and screaming and running up and down the aisles, and then you'll see people that get out there and they do the holy dance and they got them, and some of them will speak in tongues, and they've got this whole thing, and somehow the folks that are sitting in their seats or the pews watching are thinking that these people have some take on God that they don't quite have, and they desire that to the point where they'll start to fake it if they haven't quite made it. And so then it kind of like dilutes and boils down the entire experience. I remember years ago, um, I had watched one of those series, probably on PBS, about religions of different cultures. And I always thought that it was interesting how in some of the cultures, especially primitive, or I don't want to call them primitive, indigenous cultures, is that a better word for it? In some of the indigenous cultures, you would see religious experiences where they were very, how do you want to say, just there was a lot of movement to them. There was a lot of, it wasn't just to sit down and praying. It was kind of like this, especially if you watch the voodoo religions or some of the indigenous folks in other places. I mean, it was very physical, very involved, and they would dance themselves and rock themselves into trances. You see that with monks. They start to get on their hums and they get their ohms, and they get into it becomes not just a mental experience but a total, like, getting caught up in the essence of this whole thing of the religion, of God, and experiencing that oneness, that ability to come together with no matter who is there, no matter who's around you. It's all like we're uniting in this experience of that Godness, that God presence. And the moment we start to, like, think that we don't have it, or that there's something that everybody else has that we don't quite have, we dilute the process. We dilute the experience by thinking we need to make it up so that other people will somehow think we're more spiritual than we really are. The thought that you're not spiritual is what stands in the way of you actually being that. Isn't that? I love this stuff. It stands in the way, and so it becomes this whole thing of it becomes this whole thing about learning how to respect our individual relationship, how we experience this thing, and that it may not look like or be like anybody else's. It might not have the texture and the feel. I remember for my mother would just sit there, and I mean, when she get caught up in something, you would see tears coming out of her eyes. My grandmother, she would start throwing her hands and, convulsing and shouting hallelujah. And so many people have their different ways of being. You see people that will, throw their bodies up against the crowd, or fall off of a stage and get up and absolutely act like nothing ever happened. But that was how they experienced it. It doesn't mean or negate the fact that what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what you're hearing, that still small voice in you, it doesn't negate that it's happening to you right where you are right now. And so it would just, it becomes this thing of letting go of our perceptions about how it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to be like, that really cast us into the waters of the true experience of what it actually is to come into this oneness. So, it's so funny because all of us, each and every one of us has a different experience. We go through and we talk about, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the board. I'm trying to look at the board. You guys are so cool. So if you're not in Pal Talk, I'm going to digress for a second. If you're not in Pal Talk, if you're watching on Ustream or on one of the websites, or listening in some other venue, Pal Talk is a chat room on which we do, I see all these folks that we're broadcasting through Pal Talk, and I get to see all the messages that are typed to me while I'm talking. And so, yes, it is a total experience. And yes, it is just, yeah, it's always, yeah, all of this stuff is this just absolutely wonderful. So that's why I keep digressing, because I'm actually looking there and looking here too. So, um, so if say for instance, it's like naming something. I remember reading something somewhere where they talked about people who refuse to call God because to call it something is to, once you call something by a name, it's as though you label it, or you put it in a box and say what it's supposed to look like or what it's supposed to be like. So a label inherently has with it certain characteristics. So if you call me Sandra, It's not just Sandra, it would be Sandra Bishop. And because I've got my cousin married a Sandra, my uncle married a Sandra, I know all these other Sandras that have friended me since I've been on Facebook. I can't tell you how many Sandra Bishops there are now. But now there is, so yeah. So there are all these Sandra Bishops. But now what makes one Sandra Bishop different from another Sandra Bishop? So it becomes this thing of not only do you know this Sandra Bishop, but then you know the essence of Sandra. What makes Sandra Sandra? It's not just a name, it's certain qualities, it's certain parts of the personality. It's all these things that are then explain who this manifestation of Sandra Bishop is. So, but that even still is to confine it to that particular Sandra Bishop and not all the other Sandra Bishops. And so that act of confining it is kind of like what we do to God. We want to confine it and whittle it down and say what God is. And by saying what God is, then we leave off all of this other stuff that we are assuming that God is not, right? But remember, when Moses in the book, in the book with the burning bush and on the Mount of Olives, he's standing there and he's asking this thing that he perceived to be God. Who shall I say sent me? And it said, its response is, say that I am sent you. And then I am, it's like I am, what is I am? And it's I am that I am. So it becomes this allness. It becomes this like, what is it not? And the moment we try to say that what it is, then saying what it is, we're also trying to label what is not. And then that negates the allness of what God truly is. And so even to call it God rather than the thing itself, like Ernest Holmes was famous for saying, the thing itself is what he would call it, the thing itself. And so it goes beyond this idea that we can localize, pinpoint, or give attributes to that essence. So it becomes this thing of the moment we try to label our experience, the moment we try to say that this, like one thing is a spiritual experience and something else is not, we then totally trying to confine down and whittle it down into something that may not even encompass what you've been through. It's so hard, and it's said to us in the course, it's so hard to translate revelation into meaningful terms that somebody else not experiencing that same thing would understand. That's because our revelation, that's that download, that's that experience that you get, I get, that experience that is unique to us. And just because I try to tell it to you doesn't mean that you'll even understand it in the slightest a bit, because sometimes we ourselves don't understand it. All we know is that we can stand back and be in awe of the awesomeness of all that it is and how we experienced it, how we plugged into that space in that moment in that time. Oh, it's so awesome. So let me open this back up because, time for some reason flies on me when I'm doing this. I love it, love it, love it. So I see you, baby cheese, writing on here. So I see you, I see you, darling. I see you. Okay, so here, hi, Chris. Oh, bless your heart, bless your heart. Okay, so here, I'm going to read this other thing, and I don't even know what it is. I just remembered marking these as I was going through here, and thinking that I wanted to talk about this stuff as I read through this book. And I am reading Joseph Campbell's "Thou Art That," and when I first started reading the book in the introduction, one of the things it said. Let me read this to you. Schopenhauer's question, found in his essay on the foundations of morality. I love philosophy. Did I tell you guys that? You know, I studied that in school, and so I'm a philosophy major. So it goes hand in hand that I should love philosophy. But on the foundations of morals, Schopenhauer wrote this: how is it possible that suffering that is neither my own nor my own concern should immediately affect me as though it were my own, and with such force that it moves me to action? This is something really mysterious, something for which reason can provide no explanation, and for which no basis can be found in practical experience. It is not unknown even in the most hard-hearted and self-expressed or self-interested. Examples appear every day before our eyes of instant responses of the kind, without reflection, one person helping another, coming to his aid, even setting his own life in clear danger for someone whom he has seen for the first time, having nothing more in mind than that other in that need and in that peril in his life. And so Schopenhauer's response, when Joseph Campbell delighted in making his own, was that the immediate reaction and response represented the breaking of a metaphysical realization that has been best rendered as thou art that. So no matter what you see, that whole I am that I am, thou art that. Thou art that. I am my Father. Let me get to that part because I want to read that part so I can go on. Um, Sandra's heart arrived 15 minutes before she did. Bless your heart. Yo, it's so fabulous. So fabulous. Okay, so he goes on to oh, this, this is he talks a bit about the tree. And for Joseph Campbell, when he talks about the tree in different myths that he goes through, he talks about Buddha receiving his enlightenment under the tree. He talks about the tree that they ate the fruit of in the Garden of Eden, and the tree that is now set at the gate in order for us to get back into the Garden of Eden. He talked about the tree that Jesus was crucified on, and he talks about the significance of the tree and how it goes through story after story after story, and what the meaning is behind that. But I'm going to read just a small section here, just a paragraph, and I don't know why I picked this paragraph to read, other than I just put a check by it. He says, when man ate of the fruit of the tree, he discovered himself in the field of duality instead of the field of unity. So I could stop and just dissect that sentence for a minute, but let me go on. As a result, he finds himself out and in exile. The two cherubims placed at the gate are there representative of the world of the pairs of opposites, in which, having been cast out of the world of unity, he is now located. Okay, the two cherubim placed at the gate where they. Okay, you are kept in exile by your commitment to that world. Oh, so this is so coarse. I mean, is this not so coarse? Um, so this whole idea that at first man was walking in the garden and he was one with God. He was talking to God, he Adam, Eve in the two different myths, the two different creation stories that are in the Bible. There is Adam and Eve in the garden. They eat of the fruit of this tree that supposedly Eve gave to Adam, and then all of a sudden their eyes were opened and they went from the world where everything was one, unified in this wonderful garden, to the world of duality, where now all of a sudden we know good and evil. And so they were exiled out of the Garden of Eden, thrown out, because now all of a sudden man's eyes were open and now he knew what the gods knew. That's what it says in the book. So in our knowing that, it becomes this question and this is so coarse, there becomes this question of what world you're going to see, what world you have your allegiance to, what world that you're going to like pay attention to. Is it the world of duality where you perceive good and evil, or is it the one of unity where you were to pull up the curtain and you know the truth that you have never been separated from God? I love this. I, Y'all just don't even understand how much I love this stuff. Okay, let me see what Theo says. Um, and what is really cool about trees, unlike things like they wrote about that they have already disappeared, such as unicorns, cherubims, cherries, we haven't killed off trees. They can only read about them in the books. Yay, mankind. If men knew what the gods knew as a result of eating the apple, he would have no environmental issues. There. Okay. Okay. So, um, so it becomes this whole thing of us just kind of like, getting to see that we have never been in reality separated from God and Godness. It is all in the perception, this idea that somehow our eyes open and now we think that we know the truth, we now think that we know something. And so it becomes this thing of, what do you really want to see? Do you want to see that there is only one of us here? Do you want to see that we're all connected and part in this thing, that I and my brother are one? When Jesus said, I and my Father are one, do we want to have that kind of experience, or do we want to still have that experience, or that we've been having, where we think that we're still in exile from that very thing that created us lovingly to be who we are, an extension of itself? So, and it takes me back to, like over here, I'm so geeked. So it takes me back to, what am I trying to say to you? So it takes me back to what's that woman's name? Jean Houston. When Jean Houston said, I love this quote by Jean Houston. She said that the absolute, meaning God, the absolute, knowing that it could not contract, turn into itself, has coded the relative, meaning you and I, for expansion into itself. I mean, it's kind of like that big mushroom that we see for that atomic explosion, that 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 expansion. And as it expands out, it's really coming back into its fullness, into itself. And that's where you and I are. That's why you're here. That's why the course, that's why we're doing what we do, so that we can be reminded of the truth of our being, that we have never been separated from or outside of God. And if we could, there was no place else to go but back into that from which we came. Isn't that absolutely fabulous? You guys have got to be excited about this. I mean, how could you not be? Maybe it's because it's my experience. And the moment you think you've got to have an experience like mine, then that kind of negates the whole thing. I get excited about it because that's how I do. Oh my God, I love this stuff. And I tell you, Joseph Campbell wasn't even a theologian. He's not, he talks about the power of myth. And because he talks about the power of myth, he has a deep respect for everybody's myth. So whether or not he's talking about the creation story that we recognize in the Judeo-Christian belief, or if you're talking about something from out of the African culture, or out of the indigenous, what do you call those, the indigenous people out of Alaska, you've got all these different cultural beliefs, and none of them are trying to say Inuits. Thank you, oil man. Yeah. So all these cultures have their individual stories, their individual relationships, and it doesn't make one superior to another just because you and I believe it or experience it. It just simply makes it theirs and what it is. And out of each of these, there is this richness that we all can learn something from when we learn to have a respect, a deep respect for what it is that they bring to the table. How is it that these things informed what they see today? How is it that it informs how I see and how I relate? There's a little piece in here, a little section in there that talks about because I come from the Judeo-Christian perspective and the belief system, I was raised to see God as being up there in the sky, out there, this detachment from. And so it becomes this thing of there's a wedge according to what we've been raised in between what's natural and then what do I want to say? What's natural and then what is civilized? I don't understand that. I mean, how could something at one point be good and wonderful and natural, and then all of a sudden what's natural be then rendered as bad? I mean, so even if you look at and say that we have natural impulses as human beings, we've got natural impulses, we've now taken what's natural to us and made it out of something evil and that needs to be subdued. And in that subduing, we have like learned how to make it something that we don't desire for ourselves and our lives, because now we've got this definition that says this is bad, what's natural is bad. So he delves into that thing. And I'm telling you, I'm not even like halfway through the book. I just love Joseph Campbell. I love the enlightenment that he brings to a particular topic by by taking it and saying that, hey, there are certain themes that go across cultures. And so if we look at the cultural messages that we receive here and we look at those that they receive there, and what are the commonalities and the similarities, and why are we learning this stuff? Why have these myths transcended time to still inform us of where we are today? Because apparently they have some type of value. If they have some type of value, then we need not like gloss over them as if they have no meaning, but to really step back and take a look and see what is the meaning that it has here for me. What is it trying to say to me? What is it trying to say to my life? The same is true with the Course in Miracles. As it's telling you us about a practical application in our life of how to treat one another, how to see one another, how to interact with one another, how to change around the way we see the world, how to change our own vision. As we learn those things, we learn the value inherent in them, so that it brings us to a different relationship, a relationship of oneness and unity, as opposed to this idea of separation, as opposed to this idea of always thinking that it's about somebody else and something else other than ourselves. And the ego would have us blame everybody else, but really all of it is pointing to you and the places within you where you can make this growth. I love this stuff. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop saying that. And let me read this other part to you. Whew. Calm, Sandra. Calm, girl. Okay, so here we go. We have then these two totally different religious perspectives. Okay, so I'm jumping. I jumped from a couple of pages ago into this page. The idea of good and evil absolutes in the world after the fall is biblical, and as a result, you do not rest on corrupted nature. Did I read that right? Did I read that right? Okay, the good and evil absolutes in the world after the fall is biblical, and as a result, you do not rest on corrupted nature. Instead, you correct nature and align yourself with good against evil. Eastern cults, on the other hand, put you in touch with nature, where what Westerners call good and evil interlock. But by what right, this Eastern tradition asks, do we call these things evil when they are of the process of nature. Did I read that right? It just sounds like I didn't. I'm gonna keep going. It just didn't sound like I read that right. Sounds better when I was reading it silently to myself. I don't know why I like stumbled over that. So yes, I was greatly impressed when I was first in Japan. This is Joseph Campbell talking. I haven't gone to Japan yet, so if somebody wants to donate a ticket, please let me know. When I was first in Japan, I found myself in a world that knew nothing of the fall in the Garden of Eden, and consequently did not consider nature corrupt. In the Shinto's scriptures, one reads that the process of nature cannot be evil simply because it's natural. In our tradition, every natural impulse is sinful unless it has been purified in some manner. Now, I think I've told you guys that people are constantly asking me stuff like, what church do you go to? Because, I mean, that's what Black folks do. What church do you go to? And then they'll ask you further, so who's your pastor? As if somehow we need to be pasteurized. And if you're not pasteurized, something is wrong with you. Okay. And so it just becomes this whole thing of who's your pastor? Because you need to be pasteurized. You need to go through the purification process. The purification process dictates that you must be baptized. And that's the way that I was raised. I mean, that's the thinking that a lot of us come out of. This whole idea that we need to somehow be purified in order for us to be okay. Born again, are you born again? Whatever. I mean, it becomes this whole thing. Okay, so I didn't check off this next paragraph, but I'll read it anyway because it says something in here that I no, I'm not going to read that because it's got too many words in there I can't pronounce. I don't know, Euripides and the rapture and the energy of. Okay, so yeah, that's got too many doggone words in there that I'll be stumbling over. I Although I did read all of those things, Shakespearean stuff, all that stuff, but yeah, I Apollo, I know. I talked about Apollo yesterday. I talked about, but in the sense, Houston, we have a problem. Finally, it does not matter whether you're going to name them male and female. Transcendence is beyond all such namings. This symbol refers to what might simply be called total meditation. Father is Thalia, the abundance who unites the other two, the son of Eurificin, the rapture of love that pours itself into the world, the Holy Spirit, the Paraclete is Gaia, who carries us back. The energy itself stems from Apollo, who is the Christian tradition, is the one divine substance of which the three of the Trinity are personalities. So don't ask me why I read that paragraph. Remember my earlier statement, he goes on to say, that the experience of mystery comes not from expecting it, but through yielding all your programs, because your programs are based on fear and desire. Drop them and the radiance comes. So really what I hear him saying is that all of these stories that we go through kind of point us at this collective experience of seeing ourselves as separate, and then finding out or getting to a place of this unified whole. And then in this unified whole, once we get to this unified whole, then it becomes this experience. And these stories point us back to the possibility that all of this stuff is true. And so it becomes this whole experience of us then saying, okay, this is part of this process that I grow through. So remember, you guys, we go through these processes, these steps as children, of our child self. Then we go into the toddler. Then we go into, being a boy and a girl, and then adolescence, and then, and then from adolescence. And so it becomes this thing, this like these stages of life, the stages of life's developments that we're going through. And as we talk about these stories, at each of these stages, we're recognizing something that needs to happen on the inside of us. There's something that happens that casts us into a different relation. So you'll see that boys, they can go through the rites of passage in the Jewish tradition. What is it called when they go through the manhood thing? Is it? It's not. Um, Somebody, come on. What's the name of it when a boy goes through it in the Jewish tradition? Um, Bar mitzvah, yes. Because it becomes this thing of a person recognizing that at a certain shift, there's a certain shift that we go through. For girls, we get our menstrual cycles, and then it's almost as if we know that when we get our menstrual cycles, we go from being a girl into womanhood. For a boy, it becomes that you are no longer up under that, and I don't want to say it like this because as long as they're in your house, I'm sure they're still up under your authority. But they go from one experience into another experience. And so it becomes a symbolic movement from one place to the next. All of our, we've got this thing that says symbolically that we mature, we go through a maturation process, that we mature into our full self, into our spiritual self, into our unified self that recognizes that ourselves as one with God. And so we look for ways of giving that meaning or showing that experience through what we learn. So there is this going out on this journey, this journey that we all must take out into the world, and then recognizing that as we go out, there is something, a transformation that happens to us and that casts us into a different thing. So whether or not we're talking about the story of the Garden of Eden, or we're talking about the story of what is why am I like grappling for stories here? So if we're talking about the prodigal son, or if we're even talking about the story of Jesus when he says to his mother, I must be about my father's business. At a certain point, he's no longer this boy. It says he grew in wisdom and in stature, and then all of a sudden, as he came to himself in this new light, then he recognized that it was time for him to go out. If you're talking about Neo in the Matrix, or if you're talking about Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, it is this coming up, this growing up into oneself, into one's manhood and or womanhood, that says that now I was this when I was a child, I did as a child, I spoke as a child, and there is a process that cast me into this adulthood. And through this, and that's one of the reasons why I love that story, the gifts the storm may bring, because there is this thing that somehow we think that once we get on this spiritual path, that we'll no longer have issues, trials, tribulations, get depressed, have challenges. People think that. But the truth of the matter is that those are the things that help shape us. They are our sandpaper, as if you will, that smooth us out and make us into the people that we have and we become. And so through this, we're constantly defining and redefining and figuring out who it is that we are. And in that wonderful thing, we're also telling people who we are. So not only are we learning ourselves, we're showing people through what we believe and how we respond in every instance who we are and what we believe. So there is always this communication that's going on, whether you know it or not, that's always saying, hey, this is my truth. This is my truth. Even when we don't say a word, this is my truth. This morning when I woke up, I thought to myself, you know what? I kept thinking to myself, so my dad moved into a different nursing facility yesterday, just yesterday. And so last night I tossed and turned a little bit, and I was thinking about all the ways in which, this where he was just not right at. It wasn't right. I was thinking to myself, like, wow, did they turn him? Did I see him turn him? Did I see anybody do this particular thing? Oh, when I went in the bathroom, and I don't understand why the bathroom wasn't clean if he's in a room with and can't walk. Why wouldn't the bathroom be, spot? And so I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself about all the objections that I had, all the grievances in my mind that I had that I was going back into this place with today. And I'm also thinking to myself, like, okay, what do I want my experience to be? And so I thought to myself that people really, this is my waking thought, people really want to please me, people really want to make me happy. You know why they want to make me happy? Because I am love. And because I am love, people want to experience love. They want to make, they want to make sure I'm happy. They want to make sure I'm okay. I'm already happy, and all they want to do is not disappoint me. And so it becomes this thing, when I get up and speak, people, it's so funny because people think that it's like something, some monumental task. They start telling me about, how public speaking is one of these big fears that people have. I'm sitting there and I'm saying to them, and I say to people, I say to you right now, people really want you to do well. People really, when they give their attention to you, they want to hear something. And so it's not as if they want you to fail. They're not sitting there thinking bad about it. They're sitting there thinking, I want to please you because this is a world that is unified. There is unity here. And whether or not you know that to be true or not, it's already telling you that from the day that in the garden, the truth of the matter was unity, oneness with God. That is our truth. It's our truth. It's our truth. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, it's the truth. And so it becomes this thing of just reaffirming that truth all the time. I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. I want to please you. I want you to also want to please me. And as this, as I treat you, I shall treat myself. As I see you, I shall see myself. I'll never forget that, because in you, I shall find myself or lose myself. Amen. I mean, isn't that awesome? And so when I woke up, I'm thinking that they want to please me. I want to please all of us, all of it together. It's all in there together. And so all I have to do is get up and walk. Pick up your bed and walk. That's what we're told. That's all I needed to do. I didn't need to go in there and fuss about anything else. And so when I went in there today, of course, the first question she asked me, so are you happy with your room? How was everything? What is it that we can do? And so it became this effortless thing, like, wow. Yeah, this is exactly how it's supposed to be, because I set my intentions to recognize only love. And when we all do that, that's what we experience. Happiness is a choice we make. Love is a choice we make. All of this is choices that we make. And so if you want disagreement, if you want to see division, if you want to be in exile, if you want to be where that place, then it says yes to you. Remember I was saying to you guys yesterday that whether you think you can or you cannot, you're probably right. You're right, because it's done according to how you think about things. And so it becomes this thing of, if you want to see grievances, yes. If you want to see unity, yes. Yes, the universe is always saying yes to you. And so, no matter what your experience is, know that it is because it is coming forth from you, that there is a unity that is saying yes to you. Absolutely. So when you see discord, when you see the grievances, when you see stuff going wrong, check out what you're thinking, check out what it is that you're putting out there, because it all comes from within you. And something, that thing, remember I said that God's other name is something is always saying yes, yes to you. Oh, isn't that awesome? So yeah. Woo, man. Yes, yes, yes. So let me you guys, I know it's I'm got like short on time now, and I haven't read off the board in a bit. Teddy Pope is on at 7, Veronica Gabrielle at 8, and so Chris had to go. Oh man, I didn't even see her having to go. So yeah, it's as if we can all just understand that thou art that, no matter what it is that you're seeing, no matter where you are in life. It is all reaffirming you and pointing back to you. It's all you. I mean, we have this perception that that there's a Teddy, there's a Chris, there's a Lynn, there's a Dove, but all of this is to help us to know thyself. I mean, it is really, we're all here being mirrors for one another. So no people pleasing, right? And so if we're not going around trying to people please, which is what that whole little passage seemed to be about, this idea of us trying to be like somebody else or have somebody else's experience, or not even respecting our own enough to be true to the place where we come in, that spot where we enter in. One of the motifs that Joseph Campbell uses constantly is about the Knights of the Round Table and how they were all going out on this and I keep saying journey, but it's kind of like it's kind of like a journey, but this excursion into finding themselves and finding their manhood. You know how part of some of the manhood trainings that you've seen in some of the indigenous cultures meant that these boys had to go out and live out in the wilderness, or in the forest or something for a certain amount of time, and even in the what do you call them, uh, Native American cultures, they have all these stories about, animals and lions and tigers and bears and the whole fear thing and all that stuff, and it being a part of this recognition, this coming to self. And so in this, he talks about all of this stuff, but our real thing, we live in a modern culture where our lions and tigers and bears aren't animals, but rather our jobs, or our parents, or something else. I mean, some people think that they find it in a video game. I don't know. It becomes different for us here and now, but the necessity of those trials are the same. They are what causes us to grow. They are what takes us out of our comfort zone and cause us to live on that edge that challenges us to define who we are and how we see the world and our place in it. And so it becomes necessary for us to figure it out, and through the process to learn how to see where we are the same, where we are together, where we are love, where it is the truth, as opposed to where we are apart. And so all of this is there to teach us that. And if you just follow the course, you'll get there. Even if you don't follow the course, remember, this is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Whether you're taking the Course in Miracles or whatever, life is giving you this lesson. And I know we think it's a lesson. It's an experience that we're all here to have so that we can see the truth of our being. So you guys, this has been awesome for me. And but it's time for me to go. I love you. I love you. I love you, because you are me. I am you. I am that I am. We are all one, and I am just absolutely in love and adore you. So I hope that you love and adore you as well. Who are you to disagree with me when I could say that you're awesome? So I'm Sandra D. Bishop on Facebook. For Facebook.com/Sandra Thrives. Like me there. Follow me on Twitter at Sam Bishop, SAMBISHOP on Twitter. And my website is sandrasaidit.com. I just love you, and I will see you next week, Monday and Wednesday from 6:30 to 7. And until then, you guys stay blessed. All right. See ya. Y'all are awesome too. Ooh. Nobody picked up the mic.
Okay, let's see if we can get a sound check. Can you guys hear me? Yes, no, maybe. Anything? No sound? Yes, the sound? Yes, there is sound. Okay, very good. So I just want to, wow, thanks everybody. Okay, Sandra, you're welcome. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff you were just talking about. I read a lot of Joseph Campbell a long time ago. I read a lot of Joseph Campbell a long time ago, and I watched that whole series that he did on PBS. Um, and you know, his whole teaching, his whole personal teaching